My name is Megan Hughes, I'm 54 years old, and I used to work as a high school counselor in Sacramento, California. 3 years ago, I died on an operating table for 11 minutes. And in those minutes, Jesus showed me 6 things a chosen woman won't reveal to anyone. If you've ever wondered why some women choose silence instead of sharing everything, why they guard their struggles, their visions, and their deepest moments with God, keep watching. Because what Jesus showed me that day will explain everything. It was a routine surgery, gallbladder removal, nothing serious. I remember joking with the nurse about finally being able to eat Mexican food again without pain. The anesthesiologist told me to count backwards from 10. I got to 7, and then everything went black. But it wasn't black for long. Suddenly, I was standing in a place that felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced. The operating room was gone. Instead, I was in this space filled with light, but not the kind of light that hurts your eyes. It was warm and alive, and I could feel it on my skin. And then I saw him. Jesus was standing right there in front of me, not floating, not glowing like some cartoon, just standing there like a real person, but with an authority and presence that made me want to fall on my face. His eyes were kind, but they also saw right through me. Every lie I'd ever told, every secret I'd kept, every time I'd performed my faith instead of living it. "Megan," he said, and his voice was gentle but firm. "You've been living as one of my chosen ones, but you don't understand what that means yet. You share too much. You guard too little. And it's keeping you from the fullness of what I have for you." I didn't understand what he meant. I thought being chosen meant sharing my testimony, posting about my blessings, and letting everyone know what God was doing in my life. Wasn't that what we were supposed to do? Be a light? He smiled at me like he knew exactly what I was thinking. "Come," he said. "I want to show you 6 things that my chosen daughters must never reveal to anyone. Not because I want you to be secretive, but because I want you to be wise. There is power in what you keep hidden. There is protection in holy silence." And then he began to teach me. The first thing Jesus showed me was about my personal struggles. He took me to a moment from 2 years before. I was sitting in a coffee shop with a woman from church named Linda. We weren't close friends. We were more like acquaintances. But she'd ask me how I was doing, and instead of giving a simple answer, I'd opened up about everything. My marriage struggles, my daughter's rebellion, my private battles with anxiety and doubt. Jesus let me watch that conversation like a replay. And then he showed me what happened after. Linda went home and told her husband. Her husband mentioned it to someone at men's group. That person told his wife. Within 2 weeks, my private struggles had become prayer chain gossip. People were looking at me differently at church, offering unsolicited advice, treating me like I was fragile. "Do you see?" Jesus said. "When you share your weaknesses without discernment, you give others power over your story. And not everyone who asks about your struggles has your best interests at heart." He showed me Samson then, not in a vision or a dream, but like we were actually there watching it happen. Samson and Delilah. I'd read that story 100 times, but I'd never understood it the way Jesus explained it. Samson's downfall wasn't loving Delilah, Jesus said. It was revealing the source of his strength to someone who didn't honor the calling on his life. He told her his secret not because she needed to know, but because he wanted her approval. And it cost him everything. I started crying because I realized I'd been doing the same thing. Not about my hair or my strength, but about my struggles. I'd been sharing my weaknesses with people who didn't have the spiritual maturity to handle them. People who turned my confession into gossip. People who used my vulnerability against me. Look at Paul, Jesus continued. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9, Paul said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul acknowledged his weaknesses, yes, but he did it to magnify my grace, not to invite criticism. He was strategic about who he confessed to and why. Jesus looked at me with such compassion. "Megan, I want you to understand something. Your struggles are sacred. They are the places where my grace works most powerfully in your life. When you expose them to people who lack spiritual discernment, you risk the same betrayal Samson faced. Not everyone who shows interest in your life is invested in your destiny. He told me about the difference between a godly confidant and a casual acquaintance. Ask yourself these questions before you share, he said. Is this person led by my spirit? Do they align with my word? Are they trustworthy stewards of your heart? Proverbs chapter 27 verse 6 says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." A true friend will guide you back to me, not exploit your struggles for their gain. Then Jesus said something that shook me. Even I practiced discretion when I walked the earth. I often withdrew to solitary places to pray. Luke chapter 5 verse 16. I shared my deepest truths with a few chosen disciples, not the crowd. If I, who had all authority and power, understood the importance of discretion, why do you think you don't need it? I had no answer. I'd been treating my faith journey like a public performance, sharing everything with everyone, thinking it made me authentic. But Jesus was showing me it just made me vulnerable. The second thing Jesus revealed to me was about God's plans for my life before they're fulfilled. He showed me another memory, this time from 5 years ago. I'd just finished a prayer retreat and God had given me a vision. A clear, specific vision about starting a ministry for women who'd experienced trauma. I was so excited that I told everyone, my church, my friends. I even posted about it on Facebook. Jesus showed me what happened next. Some people were supportive, but others were skeptical. A few were outright critical. Who does she think she is? One woman said to another. She's not qualified for that. The negativity planted seeds of doubt in my mind. Within 6 months, I'd talked myself out of the vision entirely. Do you remember Joseph? Jesus asked me. We were suddenly watching Joseph as a young man, standing with his brothers. I gave him a dream in Genesis chapter 37. A dream where his family would bow before him. Out of youthful enthusiasm, he shared that dream with his brothers. And what did they do? I watched as Joseph's brothers grew jealous and angry. I watched them plot against him, throw him in a pit, sell him into slavery. The vision was real, Jesus said. The promise was genuine, but Joseph's timing was wrong. He shared it with people who weren't ready to celebrate what I was doing in his life. And while I still fulfilled my promise to Joseph, his journey to that destiny was much harder because of his premature disclosure. Jesus turned to me. I fulfilled the vision anyway because my plans cannot be stopped. But how much easier would Joseph's path have been if he'd kept that dream between us until the appointed time? He showed me Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Megan, my timing is perfect, but it often requires patience. When you share the vision too soon, you risk inviting unnecessary battles that your faith isn't yet fortified to endure. Jesus explained it to me like this. When I plant a vision in your heart, it's like a seed. A seed doesn't sprout overnight. It requires time to take root, to grow, to bear fruit. If you expose that seed to harsh elements before it's ready, you can stunt its growth or kill it entirely. He showed me how even he understood this principle. At the wedding in Cana, when his mother asked him to turn water into wine, "My hour has not yet come," he told her in John chapter 2 verse 4. Even I waited for the appointed time to reveal the fullness of my mission. The enemy cannot stop my plans for you, Jesus said, but he can create distractions. He can stir up opposition. He can plant seeds of doubt. And he does this most effectively when you reveal the vision prematurely. Then he showed me Nehemiah. I watched as Nehemiah received the burden to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But instead of immediately announcing his plans, he arose in the night and inspected the walls quietly. Nehemiah chapter 2 verse 12. He didn't tell anyone what God had placed in his heart until the time was right. Do you see the wisdom in that? Nehemiah understood that strategy and discretion are part of walking in my calling. He protected the vision by keeping it hidden until the appointed time. Jesus told me that my first response when he reveals his plans should not be to speak, but to pray. Commit the vision back to me, he said. Ask for wisdom, guidance, and protection. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. The third thing Jesus showed me was about my private conversations with Him. And this one hurt the most because I've been getting it so wrong. He took me back to my prayer closet, the small room in my house where I'd meet with God every morning. I watched myself praying, pouring out my heart, receiving revelation and insight. And then I watched myself immediately run to post about it online. God just told me I'd write. The Lord revealed to me today. Every single private moment with God became content for public consumption. Matthew chapter 6 verse 6. Jesus said quietly, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Megan, this isn't just about the act of prayer. It's a revelation about intimacy with me. He showed me Moses at the burning bush. I didn't reveal my plan for Israel's deliverance in the public square, Jesus explained. I met Moses in the wilderness, in solitude, and spoke to him through a burning bush. Why? Because the calling and instructions I gave Moses weren't for everyone's ears. They were sacred, meant only for the one chosen to fulfill the mission. Jesus looked at me with such tenderness. When I call you, I often begin in private. The secret place is where identity, purpose, and strategy are forged. But you've been treating our intimate moments like press releases. He showed me how some revelations are too fragile to be exposed to public scrutiny. Not everyone is ready to understand or support what I'm doing in your life, he said. Isaiah chapter 55 verses 8 and 9. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts. Then Jesus showed me the Mount of Transfiguration. I watched as he took Peter, James, and John up the mountain. They witnessed his glory. They heard God's voice declare, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." From Matthew chapter 17. What did I tell them after that experience? I watched as he instructed the disciples. Tell no one what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Why did I command secrecy? Because timing is crucial. Premature disclosure could have disrupted the Father's plan for redemption. Some revelations require incubation in the womb of faith before they're released to the world. He showed me Mary, his mother. When the angel Gabriel announced she would conceive and bear the Son of God, she didn't broadcast it. She pondered these things in her heart. Jesus said, referencing Luke chapter 2 verse 19, "That's what I need you to do, Megan. Ponder, treasure, guard our intimate moments until I tell you to share them. Every time I speak to you in the secret place, you don't owe anyone an explanation or a social media post," Jesus continued. These conversations are between us. They're meant to shape you, guide you, prepare you. Not everything I tell you is meant for public consumption. The fourth thing Jesus revealed was about the depth of my spiritual strength and weakness. This was different from the first thing about personal struggles. This was specifically about my spiritual life. Jesus showed me a women's conference I'd attended the year before. During a worship session, I'd had this powerful encounter with the Holy Spirit. I'd felt his presence so strongly, received prophetic words, experienced breakthrough, and then in the lobby afterward, I'd gathered a group of women and told them every detail. The words I'd heard, the visions I'd seen, the intimacy I'd experienced. What happened after that? I watched as jealousy crept into some of those women's hearts. Others began to doubt their own relationships with God, comparing their experiences to mine. A few started viewing me as spiritually superior, putting me on a pedestal I had no business being on. Ephesians chapter 6 verses 10 through 18. Jesus said, "Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, each piece, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit." These aren't just for protection. They're also for concealment, for guarding the treasures of your faith. He showed me David facing Goliath in 1 Samuel chapter 17. David didn't boast about his spiritual strength when he stood before that giant. Jesus explained. He didn't proclaim to Saul or the Israelites how mighty his faith was or how many victories he'd won over the lion and the bear in private. He simply acted in obedience, relying on the Father's power to deliver him. Jesus continued, David understood that his strength came not from human affirmation but from his relationship with God. That's what I need you to understand. When you reveal the depths of your spiritual strength or weakness prematurely, you expose yourself to the enemy's schemes. He showed me 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8. Your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. He listens when you talk. He observes your actions. He exploits any weakness you reveal openly. That's why even I withdrew to solitary places to pray. Luke chapter 5 verse 16. I knew the value of secrecy in spiritual matters. I guarded my connection to the Father even as I ministered publicly. There's a difference between testimony and exhibition. Jesus told me, testimony glorifies what I've done. Exhibition glorifies what you've experienced. One points to me, the other points to you. Be careful which one you're offering. The fifth thing Jesus showed me was about future plans and visions. This was similar to the second thing but deeper, more comprehensive. He took me to a moment where God had given me a detailed blueprint for the next season of my life. Specific instructions about where to go, what to do, who to connect with. Instead of treasuring it and working it out in private, I'd called 3 friends and laid out the entire plan. What happened? Jesus asked, though he already knew. I watched as one friend questioned whether I'd really heard from God. Another suggested I was being impulsive. The third offered her own opinion about what I should do instead. By the end of those conversations, I was confused and second-guessing everything. Jesus showed me Habakkuk chapter 2 verses 2 and 3 again. But this time he explained it differently. Write the vision and make it plain. But notice what comes next. The vision is for an appointed time. There's a duality here, Megan. While clarity is essential for execution, timing is equally crucial for protection. A God-given vision is not a public announcement, he said firmly. It's a covenant between you and the Father. It demands discernment and wisdom to nurture until the fullness of time. Sometimes the most profound acts of faith are not in what you proclaim, but in what you preserve. He showed me Proverbs chapter 15 verse 22. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Notice the word advisors, not acquaintances. Not everyone's opinion matters. Not everyone has earned the right to speak into your destiny. Seek advisors who are spiritually mature, who honor God's voice above their own, who possess discernment to align with His will for your life. Then Jesus showed me Nehemiah again, but from a different angle. Nehemiah rebuilt the wall with a sword in one hand and a tool in the other. He said, referencing Nehemiah chapter 4 verse 17. He protected the vision as he built it. That's what I need you to do. Some things are meant to be worked out in silence. Not all progress requires a press release. Silence gives your vision the incubation it needs to grow strong roots. Jesus explained. Silence allows me to fortify you against the storms of doubt and opposition that are sure to come. Silence is your partnership with God in protecting what He's planted within you. He looked at me with such intensity. Your vision is sacred. Your stewardship of it is a test of your trust in the Father. Will you hold fast to what He's shown you even when others demand an explanation? Will you treasure it in your heart as my mother Mary did, trusting that God Himself will bring it to pass? The fulfillment of your vision doesn't depend on how many people know about it, Jesus said. It depends on your faithfulness to the one who gave it. In the fullness of time, God will bring your vision to light. And when He does, it will be undeniable, unstoppable, and a testament to His glory. The sixth thing Jesus revealed to me was the most important one. And I almost didn't understand it at first because it seemed to contradict everything about evangelism and testimony. He showed me the identity of being chosen itself. Megan, he said, you've been telling everyone you're one of God's chosen ones. You've been wearing it like a badge, posting about it, using it in your bio, making it your identity marker, but you don't understand what you're doing. I was confused. Wasn't I supposed to be proud of being chosen? Wasn't that something to celebrate? When you broadcast that you're chosen, you invite two things, Jesus explained. First, you invite the enemy's focused attention. He can't steal your salvation, but he can make your journey harder. When you announce your position, you announce your threat level. Satan knows that chosen ones carry specific assignments that damage his kingdom. Why would you advertise that? Second, you invite human jealousy and opposition. Not everyone will celebrate what the Father is doing in your life. Some will work actively to sabotage it. Others will project their insecurities onto you. Many will misunderstand and misrepresent your calling. He showed me how he operated on earth. I didn't go around announcing, "I am the Messiah," to everyone I met, Jesus said. Even though it was true, even though I had every right to claim that identity, I was strategic about when and to whom I revealed it. Matthew chapter 16 verses 13 through 20. When Peter declared, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," what did I do? I watched the scene. After Peter's declaration, Jesus commanded the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. Why? Because timing matters, Jesus said. Because the full revelation of my identity needed to align with the Father's timeline for redemption. Because some truths are so powerful that revealing them prematurely can derail the very plan they're meant to fulfill. Being chosen is not about a title, Jesus continued. It's about a relationship and a responsibility. The Father has set you apart for specific purposes. He's given you gifts, assignments, and authority. But that doesn't mean you need to announce it to everyone. In fact, the most powerful chosen ones throughout history have been those who worked quietly, faithfully, without needing public recognition. He showed me biblical examples. Esther, who concealed her Jewish identity until the appointed time. Joseph, who served faithfully in Egypt without broadcasting that he'd been chosen for deliverance. Ruth, who simply stayed faithful to Naomi and to God without knowing she'd become the great-grandmother of King David. These were all chosen ones, Jesus said. But they didn't lead with that identity. They led with obedience. They let their fruits speak louder than their titles. When you constantly announce that you're chosen, you're actually operating from insecurity. Jesus told me gently, you're seeking validation from people rather than resting in the validation of the Father. You're trying to prove something that doesn't need proving. The Father knows who you are. I know who you are. The Holy Spirit knows who you are. That should be enough. He showed me Matthew chapter 7 verse 6. Do not give what is holy to dogs. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. Your identity as a chosen one is a pearl, Megan. It's precious. It's holy. Not everyone has earned the right to know the fullness of who you are in me. Guard it. Protect it. Let your life demonstrate it rather than your words announcing it. There's a difference between false humility and holy discretion, Jesus explained. False humility denies what God has done. Holy discretion protects what God is doing. I'm not asking you to pretend you're not chosen. I'm asking you to stop performing your chosenness for an audience. Live it. Walk in it. But don't advertise it. Then Jesus said something that completely shifted my understanding. You know what happens when you announce you're chosen? You create expectation that you're not equipped to meet. People start watching you differently, holding you to impossible standards, waiting for you to fail so they can say, see, she wasn't really chosen after all. You're setting yourself up for a level of scrutiny that will distract you from your actual assignment. Look at John the Baptist, Jesus said. He was chosen to prepare the way for me. He had one of the most important assignments in all of human history. But when people asked him who he was in John chapter 1 verses 19 through 23, he didn't say, I'm the chosen forerunner of the Messiah. He simply said, I am the voice of one calling in the wilderness. He pointed to the mission, not the title. Jesus looked at me with such love. Megan, you are chosen. You are set apart. You are beloved. But that's between you and the Father. Let your life be the evidence. Let your fruit be the testimony. Stop trying to convince people of what God has already established. Just be faithful. Then he said something I'll never forget. The most dangerous thing for a chosen one is to believe their own press releases. When you're constantly announcing that you're chosen, you start to believe that's what makes you valuable. But your value doesn't come from being chosen. Your value comes from being loved by the Father. Chosenness is about assignment, not worth. You were valuable before you were chosen for this specific purpose. Don't confuse the two. All 6 of these revelations were washing over me, and I was overwhelmed. I'd been getting it all wrong. Sharing too much. Guarding too little. Performing instead of being faithful. Jesus, I said, tears streaming down my face. I've wasted so much time. I've made so many mistakes. He smiled at me with such kindness. Megan, that's why I'm showing you this now. It's not too late. You're not beyond redemption. This is not condemnation, it's correction. I love you too much to let you continue walking in patterns that will hinder the fullness of what the Father has for you. When you go back, Jesus said, and I suddenly realized he was going to send me back, I want you to live differently. I want you to embrace the power of holy silence. Guard your struggles. Protect your visions. Treasure our private conversations. Conceal your spiritual strength. Nurture your future plans in secret. And stop performing your identity as a chosen one. But Jesus, I asked, how will people know? How will I encourage others? How will I fulfill the call to let my light shine? Your light shines brightest when it points to me, not to you, he answered. Matthew chapter 5 verse 16 says, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Notice it doesn't say, let your light shine so people will be impressed with you. The light is meant to reveal me, not promote you. There's a time to share testimony, Jesus continued. There's a time to encourage others with what God has done. But it must be led by the Spirit, not driven by ego. It must be for His glory, not your validation. And it must be shared with wisdom, not broadcast indiscriminately. I'm not calling you to be secretive, Jesus clarified. I'm calling you to be strategic. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be wise. There's a difference between being private and being dishonest. You can be transparent about your journey without revealing every intimate detail. You can be encouraging without performing your faith for applause. Then Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. Remember this above all else. You don't owe anyone an explanation for what the Father is doing in your life. Your validation comes from Him, not from the applause of people. Live for an audience of one. Guard what He's given you, and trust that in His perfect timing, everything He's planted in you will come to light in a way that cannot be denied and cannot be stopped. And then, just like that, I was back in my body. I heard machines beeping, voices shouting, someone saying, "We've got her back." My chest hurt from the compressions. My throat was raw from the breathing tube, but I was alive. When I recovered, the doctor told me I had been clinically dead for 11 minutes. They had almost given up, but somehow my heart started beating again. I never told the medical team what happened in those minutes. Some things are too sacred to share. 3 years later, my faith is quieter and deeper. I no longer broadcast every struggle or revelation. The ministry God showed me now helps women heal quietly. I've learned to guard what God gives me and trust His timing. Being chosen isn't about a title, it's about obedience. You don't have to prove anything. Protect the sacred, stay faithful, and let God reveal His work in His time. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you've been oversharing, performing, seeking validation from people instead of God, I want you to know it's not too late. Jesus is inviting you into a deeper way of living, a way marked by wisdom, discernment, and holy silence.